All right, good morning. Just to let you know. So we're gonna start with Lamrim Kappa Guru Yoga, then we're gonna make mandala offering. Actually, we're gonna make mandala offering with a practice. Then Geshe will lead the way for correcting a motivation with Refuge and Bodhicitta. So first thing first, let's do Lamrim Kappa Guru Yoga. From the heart of the savior of the 100 deities of Tushita, on the peak of cloud resembling a clump of extremely bright, fresh curd, King of Dhamma, omniscient, lost and Drakpa, please come here together with your sons. In the sky before me, on a lion throne, lotus and moon, my perfect pure Guru smiles with delight. Supreme field of merit from the mind of faith, please abide for 100 years to spread the teachings. Your holy mind is the intelligence that understands the full extent of objects to be known. Your holy speech with its excellent explanation is an ear ornament for those of good fortune. Your holy body is radiantly beautiful with glory renowned. To you are meaningful to see, hear, and remember, prostrate. Pleasant drinking water, various flowers, fragrant incenses, lights, scented waters, and so forth. Oceans of clouds like offerings, both actually arranged and mentally emanated. I offer to you the supreme field of merit. Whatever non-virtue of body, speech, and mind, especially those opposite to the three vows that I have collected from beginningless time, I confess each and every one with fervent regret from my heart. You strove for much learning and practice in this degenerate age and made your freedoms and richnesses meaningful. By abandoning the 8 worldly concerns, Savior, we sincerely rejoice in your extensive deeds. Perfect pure holy gurus from the billowing clouds of wisdom and compassion in the sky of the Dhammakaya, please let fall a rain of profound and extensive Dhamma upon the receptacle of those to be subdued exactly as they need. May whatever virtue I have collected benefit the teachings of non-transmigrated beings, and in particular may it cause the essence of the perfect pure Losam Drakpa's teaching to shine forever. Sashi Perki Jushi Meto Tamrishi Nidegembadi Sangeshindu Mikdeowa Hidrokunamda Shilachupasho. By the merits of having offered this mandala to Lamrim Kappa and his 2 sons, may I, my family members, and all sentient beings be able to meet, practice, and actualize the teachings of the victorious one, Losam Drakpa, where the morality of an eminently pure way of life was courageous and extensive conduct of the sons of the victorious ones, and accomplished the yoga of the 2 stages of supreme bliss and emptiness. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kandiyatayami. By the force of having fervently requested in this way, hollow beams of white light are emitted from the hearts of the perfect pure father and sons, and combining into one, enter my crown. White nectar, the color of milk, flows from the opening of the tube of white light, cleansing all my sicknesses, spirit harms, negative karmas, obscurations, and their imprints without exception. My body becomes as pure and clear as crystal. We're going to do the 5-line Mixima verse. Bimete wete chen chen rezi, jime kembe wambo jambe yang, dubo malo jonze sanwe da, kanchen kebe tsugen tsonga pa, lo sandra pe shabla sowa de, bimete wete chen chen rezi, jime kembe wambo jambe yang, dubo malo jonze sanwe da, kanchen kebe tsugen tsonga pa, lo sandra pe shabla sowa de, bimete wete chen chen rezi, jime kembe wambo jambe. Dubo malo jonze sanwe da, kanchen kebe tsugen tsonga pa, lo sandra pe shabla sowa de.
Sanji Chedan Tsojin Chonam La Chanchi Pardo Dami Kyabsun Chi Dagi Chushi Yibin Tsonam Drolam Benji Sanji Drupara Sho Sanji Chedan Tsojin Chonam La Chanchi Pardo Dami Kyabsun Dagi Chushi Yibin Tsonam Drolam Benji Sanji Drupara Sho Sanji Chedan Tsojin Chonam La Chanchi Pardo Dami Kyabsun Chi Dagi Chushi Yibin Tsonam Drolam Benji Sanjin Drupara Sho Gangi Tuzini Zone Tawa Tamje Bambi Chere Tambi Chun Tenze Kwadam Jela Chance Lo. Good morning, everyone. Kashi Yurumbu Jemaslada.
So there are a couple of people here that Geshe hasn't seen for a long time. So welcome. Yeah, it's you, Pete.
La Nganta Kazi Gavu Ngunzin Tsutola. Levan Zata Gapsu Chudi Shusambado Jesra. That Dini Gap Yul number Sumgi the Yundin Sheba said Tinsari Sumbala Shi Yundin Sheba Cabra Sheba Kelamba Shen the Mama Gapson said
the capsule draw with two.
Chisam Gapson said.
No.
Yeah.
We're looking at Lamrim and Kappa's presentation on this test of the path to enlightenment, the middling presentation of this test of the path. So we started the topic of going for refuge, and the topic of going for refuge is covered under 4 main sections. In the previous session, we spoke of the objects of refuge, identifying the objects of refuge, which is the second point in the 4-point outline for going for refuge. So we spoke about identifying the objects of refuge, but also what makes the objects of refuge be objects of refuge that are suitable, that are worthy of giving protection. This is what we've covered in the previous week. Let's look at the next point in the outline for going for refuge. All right, so we're going to begin with the third point in the outline, which is the way to go for refuge as many as possible. So we go for refuge through understanding their excellent qualities, the qualities of the objects of refuge, understanding their particularities through assertions or commitments, and through not advocating other objects of refuge.
Chidang azda lamrim gwan tabar de kechim bukyanja redasra lagdun de chitsamji kyabsun songsu sanamdu ani kyabsun rozu dele ya pi tanda saji ma shisoya de yondin shini kyabsun rosa ge yuldigi ani yondin shini kyabsun rogoya ani kyab yinda mayingi pi kyab tuda matu kyab weda mawe tindigi ani kyabar shibi goni ani kyabsun rogoya teni chisi samagi bardo ani kyabsun rogin sayala sobi tachi kelambi goni kyabsun roya ro dini nganzu lama chibi namalı yo naji kyon lama kyon yedam kyon kandro chigyon teni zonde chanjo bardi kyomi kyabjin munsor sayag ani ta kyabjin munsor wa tamchini kanji ani gyacha gyatambagi ani lunga yiksam pigi tesa chiglaya ani te gosa chiglaya teni kyabsun rowa yana ani kyab tuyagi kyaban rogoro asra.
In following the outline for this topic of going for refuge, we, it helps us in our mind to sort out the importance and priorities of this topic of going for refuge. So when we look at the way in which we go for refuge as much as we can, we begin with understanding the excellent qualities of the objects of refuge, the Buddha and Dhamma and Sangha. So one way of seeking protection in them is to understand what the good qualities are. The second point is through understanding the particularities in a sense that when we can make that clear distinction in our mind with respect to what can give us protection, what cannot give us protection, what is suitable to give protection, what is not suitable to give protection. What is for us something that is a refuge, what is not an object of refuge. Through making such distinctions, we go for refuge. The third point in the translation is called assertion, but we can just as well call it a commitment, in that we make a commitment, for example, to go for refuge from this point on and for the rest of our life, or until we attain the state of enlightenment. So in that sense, we commit ourselves for the act for going for refuge. And the final point is through not advocating other objects of refuge for ourselves. Just as it is said in the Guru Puja, you are my Lama, you are my Idam, you are my Kadro, you are my Dhamma protector, and so forth. From this point on, until I attain the state of enlightenment, I seek refuge in none other than you. So in that sense, when we understand all the other bits that we spoke of, the qualities and the particularities and so forth, then our commitment for refuge is that we're going to go for refuge to these objects of refuge rather than other objects of refuge.
Diresha, Dinza, Pena, Nanzutachi, mid para Java in Bana, touching me a which some showing in Jimena, Pa Gacha Jatamba, Ijichena, and Tsu Tinanshingi, and Lokachini, the Chigras, Dinanshingi, Kunjolaya, Piggy, Nanzu, Kavu, and a Sanjichu Gendusumlaya, Jatamba Piggy, Ichi Chivaina, and it Kavu Gichalabdi. Ani rangula ya jugachi yunguyores ta dindi ani kanji yichi chembuji mewaina ani thi tsugi ani tumri de yongya mewachi kanji dindi redo asra.
In some sense, you can say that it is similar to other relationships that we have with others, in that if you have a relationship with a person, you trust that the person is a good person. When you have trust in that person, you also then think in your mind that this is someone that I can rely upon. You develop in your mind that trust that allows you to rely upon that person. So it is like that also with the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. To receive the blessings of the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, we need to trust them. If we think that we're going for refuge, but in our heart, we don't have that sense of trust in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, there would be not much blessings that we will receive or engage with. There would be no much blessings of the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha.
Manzo Tasala, Tasala, so, the Nimataba, so Nimataba, so soyores, so piggy, Tuzicilla, Tuzutadajilla, Sojin, Tuzutadajilla, Trogorasra, Takashikashi. So jilly tegrasra, so jilly teddy piggy, Drinzula tangy diggy, Kubla techa sharis, techa is some stingy. Your room with jilly tenera, techa some stingy. Kamangas, toast jilly tenor, chicks sharing the
So that without the trust, we will not find much success in whatever we do. So another thing that Geshe said on the side is, at the monastery, you have in the morning, you have talk prayer sessions that occur every morning. So there is the time for the assembly, at the time in which the talk is finished, and it's done precisely every day, exactly in the right time. So of course, there are people that sometimes are a bit late to talk, so they get punishments. so you know, those that are kind of late, no, that are very late, they get smacked 3 times. Those that are late only 5 minutes, they get only 1 smack.
Piggy Jingzu Dangi, Gamba the Shamba Jignior, the Gamba Tilla Gigu Segro, and the Shamba Delaya, and the Chabri Segre, Gigu Roberta. Is it Nidon Tambalola? Nidon Tambilola, the Ditama Tamangi Piggy well looking. damgresra ani nidon tambala nga damresra nga logic la tazang pigita ser teaching link taw tongda shis ta tazang ni la ya peshi taw tongda shi nga masum sum ji yorosra dindi tazang meni gigu da chabri chi yor tazang chini gigu da chabri chi yoresra nga tidinga chi kesonsra
chabri
angi logic la ta dingzu ta gora da ngi teste share yoresra 다 단다 상다 다도 슬렌 다직 노쇼비 비기 직상단단 저단다 직치원디 다 단다 저지나 자원이니 직시할 투사 말했으라 니동 로라야 다 비기 증주 따고리 메토즈 증주 야고 따고문도 슬라나 다 야부 요 말았으라 대자 가시기 다 자와 동자 망부여 원사 가시 that zemuzegrasra sollen zemuzegras that zemuzedian that is the shargorsra
so in the big monastery where Geshe comes from, there are two people that are responsible for making sure the discipline is followed precisely. So the senior one is called Geku, or in English the discipline master. Then every Geku has his cronies. Right, they're called Chabri. So Geshe was appointed to be a crony in 2000, the year 2000. So there were about 4,000 or 5,000 monks at Sera Monastery. It belongs to different colleges, right? So sometimes you have the big discipline master and a few people under the discipline master, the helpers. And of course, you have to make sure that you follow discipline, because if you let things slip, then people then get criticized. No, then it permeates to not only to other parts of the monastery, but also outside. And then people say that, no, they do not follow the discipline correctly and properly. So then even if you're soft-hearted, you sometimes have to kind of be tough and enforce those rules. So Geshe, when he was the Chabri, the helper of the discipline master, which means the junior discipline master, then smacking wars or beating people was part of the job. It comes with the territory. Anyway, it seems that here probably it's not going to go down very well. Now again, Geshe recognizes that here our situation is somewhat different. So, but at least at Sera Monastery, this is the way that it goes.
nganzi be horda ba da gorda sra so ya chondi da ani dukan chenbu shu yara da ta tongda ni sum dindi chogora da bi khanga tong so ya chondi so ya cho sa da ani bi da go chenan ya ani chabri da gigu namo ya legres 당에 로바 기구도 단다 신일이요 gen시가와 기시시가와 단다 gentun된 gentun된 다베 그쇼존의 슈거단다 아니 다 gen염조를 gen게시하게 말아 안다비 저야 초자디 저도 다 게시시거다 게시 남미기 고쳤는 야 나로 주었다 잠딘딘 데르다 கொஞ்ச 데르다 이 짝서 주면 잠딘딘 신 데르다 아니 미기 술드니 술되는 파쇼 술라 가지왕이 통과다 되는가 비기 탑딩이 되나 된수 용신 아니 레즈니 샬 아니 비기 봤다라 안 렌드 걸 잠딩디 데르다스라
In the big assembly hall at the monastery, you could fit about 2,000 monks. So there were sometimes those sessions where you had 2,000 monks sitting in sessions. So sometimes they, when they gather together, then rather than doing the prayers or do what they need to do, then they either muck around or they kind of talk and pull jokes and so forth. So the monks gather together. Then the discipline master and their helpers come in, so they walk the ranks and kind of the gaze over the audience, and they see all the monks sitting. So if you're in one corner of the temple on the assembly hall, you would see everyone sitting around, and you will also see those areas in which monks are mucking around, having conversation with each other. So sometimes it's enough that you just gaze at them and then they go into that thick silence. So Geshe was one of the cronies. The discipline master was, he now lives at Sydney, Yeshidawa. His name is Yeshigawa, sorry, Yeshigawa. He stays at Geshidawa's center. Anyway, he was the big boss, right? The big discipline master. And Geshe was one of the helpers. Chuki says from Sydney, Lamrim says Geshigawa was the strict one. Well, Geshe begs to differ. It wasn't that strict. Anyway, so but Geshe was a little bit strict. So Geshigawa was not beating too many people, but Geshe said that when he came into the Gompa after Geshigawa, it was enough that he would look at the other side of the hall for people to go silent. You know, so sometimes also kind of what you need to do is kind of you enter the hall, you go to the other side, you kind of help someone, and then all the other ones go silent.
아니 베나다 로쪽지 주고 뉴스사장 다 숨지하면 다 미장장 앞에 아니 포사장장 좀 열었더라 산산단 나가 지우진 다 타우라 다두 샤샤바나 엠피 된번 되야라 소바다지 아니 가리나다지 고 냠차 주고요 반자 인지민이 그 땅진 마치란지레스 다 아니 다 약슈디 데스 샤르바이나 다 약슈디레스로 카시 라고르데 디고 아니 티치단 대바타나 생들인도 나 카시지기 계란이 개발을 나 슈펜스 그때 나대야 뜻을 곤절라스가 무슬라스 티 소라 비 아니 춤의 땅이 디게 아니 시차론 디게 카시다 개반 나사용이 든디어라 야차자다 팽그들라고 다디
Just said the chi gyokpa do di la
그렇죠.
lakfatan chemara.
제
Gyokpa do.
죽바 니마이는 죽바 가시 죽바 기도 이 망치야지 탁박이 대작 소리 소리.
Anyway, here Geshe says that when he tells those stories, he's a little bit embarrassed. Sounds a little bit embarrassing, but keep in mind that when you have those massive assembly halls with thousands of monks that come together, many of them are 18, 19, 20-year-old guys, you know, so you have that big, massive male energy, you know, guys' energy. So you have to be more strict with them. You know, if you don't become strict with them, then things can go a little bit dangerous. So they have to do their prayers, they have to do their recitations and so forth. So you have to be strict with them, at least more strict than with this audience, it seems. So sometimes it's enough that you just give a smack to one person and all the other one, how do you say, come in? Well, so Geshe said that he did do that, but so what you do is you go around and you have you carry kind of like a rope, probably not a whip, but just a rope, and if you need to beat someone, you just kind of smack them on the back. So of course it's a little bit painful, but Geshe said he had some people that he spoke with after that. They said that actually that was really useful. They thanked him for that.
did that.
Anyway, so it seems that the company dila chare den de chawaina. Yeah, company is a new discipline master. We're gonna give her a whip for next time. I guess she says that she's still so soft-hearted. It's probably not gonna help. But she's quite strict with Geshe's food, so maybe there's hope.
어디에서다 간지 연den시니 로 당분이 스캡지 연된 탱급이 텔레솜스 산지 연된 추 연된 겐데 연된 당불의 시 구용된 송기용된 투기용된 틸레용된 노 당불 산지기 센다 배신남 템버치디 벨 벨레테발레 마치로샤인 표그 생기 제규바 제규미키 두즈니 팀미팅기 남칼라 까민 소지 때반다 톰바세긴 돈덴바 추구기요 제규바 세기루 세문에 삼지팅기 때반다 건키 gengi 마겐자 샤기킹건 당강인 다위킹고 제규바 텐단달라 테만치 저기 샤기 빼마다 빼마님이 카치오 본돈나 빼마니 태좀 제탈란 중결 교실 세긴 돈덴바 섬걸 제번 교환이 세기 리셉트인가이 다스 팀에 슈반다 총 교지 차이니 콜린 생긴 제규바 콜을 잡에 맨남라 차기 웅진 제발락 튕겨 10번 기위지 샤미 빼기 빼만다 사진드네 튕겨봐 빼마진기 제단지 시 송바다 템바차오스.
Anyway, we're going to look at the good qualities of the objects of refuge as part of the way that we go for refuge. So understanding the good qualities begin with understanding the qualities of the Buddha, then the Dhamma, then the Sangha. Now, when we begin with the Buddha's excellent qualities, the actual excellent qualities and supplementary points. Now, with the actual excellent qualities, we're going to look at the qualities of body, speech, and mind and activities, exalted activities. Let's begin with the excellent qualities of a Buddha's body. Being mindful of the signs and marks of a Buddha, drawing from a source, the Upamastava, it says, your body is adorned with signs, beautiful nectar for the eyes, like a cloudless sky in autumn, ornamented with clusters of stars, or sage, endowed with the color of gold, beautiful, dressed in monastic robes, like a golden mountain top, wrapped in clouds at dusk or dawn. Protector, your facial circle's splendor, although unadorned by jewelry, is beyond that of the mundis, although vast and clear of clouds. If the lotus of your mouth and the lotus in bloom in the sun are beheld by a bee, the bee will have its doubts about the lotus. Your face endowed with color of gold, while white teeth make it more beautiful, like immaculate autumn moonbeams, filtering through golden mounts. Venerable one, your red hand, embellished by the marks of the wheel, gives breath to the people terrified by the cycle of existence. O sage, as you walk, your feet draw what looks like lotuses of glory in the earth you tread. With lotuses, how will it be lovelier? You should remember them or think about them in accordance with this statement.
어디를 다 디게 천상부 숨주단 배시상부 제주세디 다 자랑수 찍더니 당한중 어르지 다 용마라스 디다 제슈디 온도제 갑 제비 갑려야 요레스 디 비기 차시 콜루찬다 리벌샵세 디 자랑수 배시 찍바인지 구글 나올라야 아니 디 천상부 숨주신 티바이나 디 자와단 제와 찬자 배시 인지도가 줄여라다 디 찬자 라그레스로 찍더니
Gugona? Here, it refers to the major marks and minor signs of the Buddha's body. So it is likely that we have heard about some of them, maybe a couple of good signs or one of those major signs or minor marks of the Buddha. The full explanation of them is found in the 8th chapter from Maitreya's Ornament for Clear Realization. So not only there is a source that explains the list of all the major marks and minor signs of the Buddha's body, but also the commentary that explains how they come about. So if in the future you think that this is something that I want to look at, this is something that I need to know, this is where you need to look for that in the 8th chapter of the Ornament of Clear Realization.
딘디치 요레스 다 이나양 안주다 갑두바다 도도 샤바나 아니 산기 꿀이야 지 멜레비기 경기차 세디 총세점이야 두텐점이야 요 말이스 다 딘티기 그 연된식 선거레스.
Anyway, in this way, we have a list of the qualities of a Buddha's body. In short, when you look at those qualities, you come to see that there is not even one portion of the qualities of a Buddha's body that is sullied, that is stained.
랑 benanganzugi ludoji bayna ta kari inako chik chan mansande yochik ra mig chik yagbo na chik shola chik kyo de yochik ani ya chik mig yagbo na nau de chik cheta yochik a chik yora ta kanji subu cha yonsu zobodu stay on di chik ani kyen chik yora da ra sanji kulaya tinji kyen di di tagas sheja yu zawni ni mares di kyen chat 참모장이야. 로 무슨 저기 아니 산지 구수든 제바이나 이혼 초하지 마더비 아니 그냥 최종세지게 요 말했어.
To say that there is not even a slight fault or taint in the Buddha's body means to say that the Buddha's body is different to our body, in the sense that when we look at our body, we can see, for example, that there are certain areas in the body which are not that symmetrical. And that when we look at our eyes, it might be that one is different to the other, either bigger than the other, or maybe one is going in one direction, the other one is going in another direction. If our eyes are perfect, then something might not be completely spot on with our nose, it might be too big and so forth. So anyway, for us, it's impossible to have this perfect alignment of all the different features in our body, whereas with respect to the body, when we look at those qualities, we see that there's not even the slight disproportion and so forth in a Buddha's body, which means that when we apprehend a Buddha's body, we see that with a great sense of appeal.
가르치는 송구요래 그 용된 딘디지 아니 가르치는 차와래 세기 라다 간주 지화 용거라스 이 용고고다스라 디 아니 그 용된 아니 가서 다지 제신 이동의 차야디 규yen질 때니 정말인자 규yen디 이즘이 신고야 그러 다 규yen 그 조디 아니 비기다 잔주 선비기다 냠랭 그 조 아니 제소 파신 축로 냠술 렘발 때니 아니 그수 든지 추여바디 땅간주 산지 종라야 원내 장바치 바이나 데니 아니 샘라 라트여바지 차고레스.
So you might wonder, how did that come about? How is it that a Buddha's body has those good qualities? Well, we find the Buddha's body to be beautiful, to have the great sense of appeal. And that came through dependency upon cause and conditions. And depending upon cause and conditions, these attributes came to be. And the main things that have contributed to these features of a Buddha's body were the practice of bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, followed up by the practice of the 6 perfections. These were the things that established those features of a Buddha's body. So if we study them in detail, we can see how those different features that are practiced through bodhicitta, the 6 perfections and so forth, contribute to those excellent qualities of a Buddha's body, which makes such a body beautiful with a great sense of appeal.
아니 짐바당월 데니 론제 용거레스 짐비 론제 침기데 저빈단데 쩨비제 삼덴 치시 로이트스 하고서.
So looking at the different attributes that come through the practice of the 6 perfections, such as generosity, it is said in one source that from generosity come resources. From ethics, from ethical discipline, you get happiness or good rebirths, happy migrations. From patience, you get an appealing appearance, a beautiful appearance. From joyous effort, you have the diligence that comes about and magnificence. From absorption, you have a tamed mind, and from wisdom comes a liberated mind.
Dinza penantang anzo zamalo subu yakbu subu ninjibu domba ninjibu mogonge peshi yobarasra do sound down by ne shogia lan chipi tree jev sobda zu chitala color shu domba la da chuya di ninjibu tonya che ta sogora ta thambu tanja sheba no sogoras inaya ta thambu di inaya pigi ta lomba kan chushi ane pedin kontro shedan ngagi ton machi ane chiloji tenyong bay na musu kangi pe ni jibu tongmo das ti gacha jada maren das tinza dele kaya mashuwa chi nganzu debala ya lo shin kashi kunje kangi chimu pe simbal jejini pe ane samba sambu ansul tona ya pe ane chi kushab da demban roding tindi ane kashi tongmo dusra de pe and same thing kushab use tinza 아니 지 간지 셈바 상부체 아니 밀어야 참지다 지 저sem고 돈은 줘봐이나 그냥 가야 마셔봐이나 sob다 가야 마셔봐이나야 매 감각이 야구 통고도 왔어라 진짜 아니 저변 단된세디 오늘 전에 해도 왔어라.
So now when you think of these attributes which are forged by the practice of the six perfections and how they contribute to a sense of appeal in society, we want others to find us attractive. We want others to find our body attractive, our face beautiful, and so forth. And as we wake up in the morning, we take a shower, we look at the mirror, we might apply some cosmetics, products, hair dye, or what have you. All of those different things that we do is in order for others to appreciate our appearance. But then when you think about it from the point of view of this presentation, you might use all those different products, cosmetics, makeup, hair dye, or what have you, and then go out and let all of your afflictive states of mind show in your face, anger and pride and jealousy and so forth. And Geshe reckons that even if your effort in creating that beautiful appearance would be immaculate, still, if your appearance is controlled by anger, pride, jealousy, and so forth, people will not find you attractive. Whereas you sometimes see, for example, people here, someone that might not be putting any makeup or any hair dye, or not using any hair dye and so forth, but with a physical appearance, they seem to be, first of all, a kind-hearted person. They treat everyone with a sense of respect. They care for others. They treat others with that deep sense of kind-heartedness and care. And Geshe reckons that even without putting a lot of effort into one's physical appearance, it seems that people naturally gravitate towards someone like that, find that person or look at that person with a great sense of appeal.
Dinza damba gadin jengi kuzu di ani zeshe yidongwa tongna mentumba zawani ni medewa di ani jison pashin drugi nyamlen tachimbala teni ani tubishakwa shiyes o disungorda ra dindi chile ya gu yonden pigige pusum soba ani gu jison pashin drug ani nyamlen tachimbala teni ani gu yonde pusum soba tubdingingi ani damba dindi chile ya ani kyab chobayina kyanan kyab tugres ro an kyab sam manores kyab chu sam manor chagores o dita gu yonde shebagi godin zodi tichik chagras ro.
So then when we look at these qualities of a Buddha's body, which are explained here, it is said that those qualities are qualities in which you have nothing is tainted, nothing is not harmonious, nothing is not balanced, which means to say that those things came through cause and conditions, and the cause and conditions contributing to an appearance that is beautiful, that is appealing. The cause and conditions are the practice of the six perfections, such as generosity and so forth, which are supported by bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, which means that when you look at the qualities of body and you understand what created those qualities of bodies, the practice of the six perfections and so forth, and bringing the six perfections to a state of perfection, then you understand that those qualities that were forged by the six perfections make that object of refuge be an object of refuge that is suitable to be a refuge for you. For you, it becomes an unmistaken object of refuge. So this is the purpose of mentioning those qualities of body, right? So that we can understand what the cause and conditions that have contributed to those qualities of body.
Diza dinganzugita shingoya chikra samba yagbu chiyobayna ani tela tembigi chava kharchena ya ani drubdeya ani chi roba khandaji thugba inaya ani chi chambu yongya ani zaba thartubadi ani samba sambolaya thuguyobadi yashigata vares dinza kanji nganzu lamram pigigi ko kazu nyeng gi yob inaya Godin so di and can't remember di and it sem this samba yabu chetoyak and it tabshi said didn't was did it.
And if the mind is transformed to be that kind-hearted mind, then whatever we do, we'd be able to accomplish that. Whoever we might be associated with, whatever company we keep, we're going to be able to be in harmony with others. A kind-hearted person, a person with a good state of mind. And this is the purpose that we hold in mind when we listen to these teachings of the Lamrim. When we study the Lamrim teaching, our goal is to transform our mind to be just like that, a good mind, a kind-hearted state of mind.
Ani sanji songi yonden delaya da nganzu gi da chi shesama nganzu gi ke na shingi pigi gi dada sesam meba teni chi keje di yani yandu korajan she devandro ani dejun yo devandro ani chi hashin gawa yo devandro ani chi mi na la mandro dindi ro sosu ngani chi pigi la ya chi yabu shi ku kuiba pashamen ani chi semla ya pogdo so dindi yonde dindi gi kensing di chongse samyata yungyo mare sanji sonlaya.
The next section of the text is describing the good qualities of the Buddha's speeches, a way of describing the good qualities of Buddha as an object of refuge. So when those qualities of the speech of Buddha are mentioned, they emphasize or they show that the Buddha's intonation, voice, or speech is not something that is unpleasant. It's not something, the Buddha's way of speaking is not a repetitive way of speaking that gets always around the point and not really hitting the mark. So the Buddha's speech is not like that. The Buddha's speech is without contradiction and also without this ability or tendency to create discomfort or displeasure in the minds of others, in a sense that sometimes it is possible that someone says something that is supposed to be pleasant, that's supposed to be pleasing to another person, and yet they get offended. So Buddha's speech is not like that.
Ani ji temegi tangan zurojina ji ani temegi ngakel mamushu shede ro temegi ngakel sheni ani tutsu chola tanya kanji kanga chola redos ro Tindigi and a song jigsaw in Chensigio Marista, Ganji Sanji Kansong Badi, and it Jinju Dojalaya, and it to the number condo, and a Pendo Young Songjimado, Sanji Song Chensigio Maris, Tindigi Takanji, and a song on the Tindich Chagores.
Also, we get involved in a lot of idle chatter. We tend to speak often about things that do not have a lot of meaning, and as such we waste a lot of time. So also in thinking of the qualities of a Buddhist speech, they're not like that, in that they're always helpful in all times, in all ways they're helpful to others. Such are the qualities of a Buddhist speech.
Komshi shoyoras ro temegi keje sheni tigi tenda mebi ganla ya ani meshamba semkom la ya ani poduk tanya la soba ro mesheng semkom la poduk tamba ina tigi tumje kari yungre ran la magangi mi mar doya 딘지 마도비 펜도치야만도 스라
We do sometimes develop the habit of being involved with a lot of meaningless chatter, speaking about things that do not have a lot of meaning. And sometimes in our involvement with that idle chatter, meaningless chatter, we tend to harm others. Sometimes others get offended. And it creates sometimes that situation in which others stay away from us or they have a sense of dislike towards us. That brings us no benefit.
예, 던디나 이번은 직den기 감기 심진 강유기 뒤직도 멘드라와리니 티장 단도 통마이 비 개주직 순거레스 샘기 깨직직다 덴비 셔르기 손이 뒤직이 저와 탐지기 렌즈지 대남지장 라랑기 깨도 고원교와 신도매도 좀 출산바때 덴바 담비 레벨에 대들 심진 군기 네비스 망보다기 뒤직 슈슈나 샘기 깨직직을 투춘이 송양지기 소스 렌얀데 대다위는 덴반 직대는 참비다야 송조 캠버즈 된 함은 동안 타진비 취기 콜로라도 거월제 시송비 출기 셈바워스.
Now, looking at what Kappa says in his text, he emphasizes here something that is unique to Buddha. And it says you should think about the very marvelous way in which any number of sentient beings in the world realms ask different questions all at once, and he still apprehends them with wisdom that possesses a single instant of mind and answers all the questions with one utterance that they understand in their respective languages. Right? So that's a unique feature. In chapter of the Truthful One, it says, if thus all beings in one single moment ask a question in many specific words, his mind comprehends them in a single moment and answers them all with one melodious statement. Thus, know that the melodious Brahma voice of him who gives instructions rings forth in this world. He thoroughly set in motion the wheel of Dhamma, eradicating the suffering of gods and men. You reflect along the line of this statement.
들다 디조 간주 삼로직 단디게 셈나 마숑에로 딘디텐데 용 쓰기로스다 용으로 왔어 아니 이내야 다 초직니 사운다나 용 초바치기 용 외바치 간스나 간주기 깨어 통하면 단답도 컴비기 차다 모습 세 비는 가란수 길이비 차다 모습디 베디 장마 수치니 비기 잠년지 잔주고 샘기 아니 샘기 용 아니 추비기 산기 공방 토에 열에서 나온디 나는 샘라 때바나 디 자원이 미시고 소르지 레도스 이내야 디 용해 열었어 봐 딘자 나는 샘라 때니 자원이 좀 미시고 삼주도서 아니 산기라야 연된디 용구 열에서 딘자 디 공기 비기 고손투기 가서 산지추 겐두송고 연대시 온디 산기 연대 삼미캡 추기 연대 삼기미캡 겐딩 연대 삼기미캡서 온디 난주 삼유일 데바 짱게 열송데디 두스 차고라서라.
Now, thinking of these qualities as described here, they seem to be completely fanciful in that we don't really understand how something like that is possible. For us, it becomes inconceivable that a Buddha's mind or Buddha's speech would have such qualities. So one way of thinking about it, one way of thinking of whether it is possible for someone to have those qualities, whether it is possible for these qualities to come to be. Well, often the way that we think about it is from the perspective of someone whose mind is controlled by anger, attachment, and ignorance. Looking at our mind, we haven't cleaned our mind, we haven't purified our mind from anger, attachment, and ignorance, those three poisonous afflictions. So when we think of the development of loving kindness and compassion and bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, in a mind that is completely free from anger, attachment, and ignorance, we think that that's not possible. We're not going to be able to do that. It is impossible for someone to develop loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, and attain the state of enlightenment, because we only appreciate our own qualities, and currently it seems to us that it would be impossible for us to do it. So therefore, when we think of such qualities of the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, they for us seem to be inconceivable. The Buddha's qualities are inconceivable. The Dhamma's qualities are inconceivable. The Sangha's qualities are inconceivable.
Tere bena zo di sozugi ta chikkewa ngami bhaksha sechik sungores bhaksha da ani sonum ani theba dindri gi chobayina ani kariyina yong chogores bena jonshin longi kurvi dal teni ani demba shela soba ro sangi gi chingi lab ki wangi sozugi ta thebe chona ani da tindile teni bena ani denshi mataki pe ani tanda tuzu kotugoras ro kogoras.
And our ability to interact with that, to engage with that, also depends upon what imprints we have placed upon a mind stream in past lifetimes. So, for example, having trust and faith in those points also has to do with the degree of imprints that we have placed upon the mind stream in previous lifetimes. Like, for example, it is said that for some, they can hear teachings on the Four Truth just by the sound of wind rustling through the leaves of trees. So for those that have placed those imprints before, through already have developed the mind to a certain degree, even those sounds which are related to the elements, the movements of wind through leaves and so forth, even for them that can be connected with teachings on the Four Truths.
Tida tüdang pigi ani chik sonamda dindri mambu kheba tenden rogo sares ma genrom chigi yam sembu jilaya ngima phelaya ta chikdong go yangab chu ngagu khonlaya ani chik phelaya ta chhe shuji ro ani gendon thita mambu zomgoras pigi hasa chula kan singi dilaya ani dansa sumgi ani sanji chomden di ta malom chogors malom chemo chondi ani trawa teaching ro trawa teaching zomgores kab thudi ani ganden chirumbu chigi ani kerim gi ani kachuna yala soba yang kab ya jawrum chigi yonzen nambani ige ani chig lamram go sonjola soba dindi nang yores geng kab thudi bigi nganzo gi ani khabar da dindi sawni mundo ani trawa timambu deorda samagi sonju tagda kogors geng ta densan pe de khabar dia pe dachembu shoji matsuna ani mako ya di yamsen reja songda.
And such qualities also depend upon the merit of people and also the karma and the imprints that they've accumulated in past lifetimes. Like, for example, Geshe's teacher that has passed away a few years ago told him that before 1959, before many Tibetans fled to India as refugees, before the occupation, there were, of course, thousands, hundreds of thousands of monks living in monasteries all across Tibet. And sometimes many of them came together. Tens of thousands of monks came together to receive teachings and so forth. For example, in Lhasa, at the main assembly place of Lhasa, what is called the Tsultrim, there used to be the annual prayer festival, the Monlam, that were held every year. And thousands of people and tens of thousands of monks came together for this prayer festival. And during that occasion, the Ganden throne holder, that is the leader or the biggest lama in the Gelug tradition, used to give teachings on, let's say, the generation stage, or his honest tutors, the senior or the elder, the senior or the younger, used to give teachings on the steps of the path of enlightenment. So thinking about the time and the location of those teachings, it was prior to 1959, and they didn't have any loudspeakers. So sound system was not in use. There were no loudspeakers, and teachings were given like that by one person to an audience of 10,000s of people. And Geshe's teacher that was there at the time, he said everyone heard those teachings, although there were no mics and speakers and so forth. So think about it, being able to hear those teachings without all that technology that we enjoy now. Geshe feels that also has to do with the merit that you have accumulated before, the imprints that you had in your mind and so forth.
제 두즈다 두즈 망부슈키 드려 말았으라 롱압주 투주 공게 저래다 아 학든 송 갱 학든 두 단다 아니 캡지 티장 rum부치기 송데다 빼 마스바 되네 에 시부 아니 첨부 슈여성도.
So it wasn't that long ago, just a few decades ago, 5 or 6 decades ago, those teachings were given in that setup. And Geshe's teacher told him about Chinchang Rinpoche, that was the younger tutor for His Holiness the Dalai Lama. He said that when he gave teachings to that big audience, his voice was very clear and also very loud.
제 어디자 다 산지기 송 다가라 로 베나타 가서 산지기 남들나 대바이나 베나 단단 가서 좋은데 자금 품부를 쓰라바이나 피길이야 사제 진정 쉬우지 로 텔이야 쳐다 동세 로 개론 쳐다 동세지 가든 쉬고는 삼삼로지 간진 안 주로요라 자원이 쇼해매지 레도스 이내야 급 대치 뒤틀어야 야차견다 망하네 야차 야다왜 인기를 삼삼지 마도 지 아이나 삼에 덕받성 연구문도스 로 인자 산지 좀된 데기 자금 품부를야 아니 셰싱군 도송비기 뒤 다가라야 아니 지 아니 연롱 셴다 셴라야 아니 양비기 지 규기 아니 쇼라 소바다 근데 참 송구여세 아니 산지기 남들 나를 커요르스로 다가스 아니 맹고고 따야지 제도 티샤와지 싸우니 인기를 만상문도 쓰러.
But not only that, also when you look at the narratives telling how the Buddha gave teachings in different parts of India. So one of those sets of teachings was given on Vulture's mountain, Vulture's peak in Rajgir. And when you look at the narratives of the sutras, the Perfection of Wisdom sutras, they say that these teachings were given to a community of thousands and then thousands of people that have assembled together to receive those teachings on the Perfection of Wisdom sutras. So when we look at Rajgir and Vulture's peak at Rajgir, for us, it seems to be completely inconceivable. We cannot get a head around how those teachings were given to such a great number of people, a great audience, and those people were there taking those teachings, hearing those teachings, and so forth. But then when you think about it from the viewpoint of such qualities of Buddha, at least Geshe said that he has no doubt that those teachings have actually occurred and were given to that great number of beings. This is the way that those teachings were described, and Geshe reckons that for him, those teachings are non-deceptive.
아니 산지 갈송 요르슬라운디 비기 뎀바시 뎀바니 아니 지 잔주그 셈다 닌지다 두주 돌아야 다 산지 송바리 로 산지 마숑고 아니 로니동 투게스지 콘라야 아니 잠블린라야 디케샤디 사원이니 요마라스 로 디케시디 요마라스 딘지치 송자와 디 로니동 투게스지 드로잉고 요르다야 단다 이나야 베디 안 디 쇼지기 계셴부치로 미스 남주 영의 순례지기 비길이야 아니 텔레야 딱지 지온디 이원 초야지 모두 제 아삼삼지 모두 비기 디직 태그문도 삼삼로 텔레야 견 두세지 사원이니 매바스로.
Such teachings that the Buddha gave on the four truths, on the two truths, on the development of compassion and bodhicitta and the mind of enlightenment were given 2,600 years ago, and there were unprecedented teachings, a set of teachings that did not exist before, and 2,600 years later, they're still very relevant to us. And when we study those teachings, we find them appealing. We get inspired by those teachings. And Geshe reckons that also those teachings can still not be invalidated. It's not that we find them untrue, just like they were true 2,600 years ago. For us, they still hold true.
And di nangi migi pigi ani chik chajoda samlo tangtang ten gyuwa shu drogore inaya sanji song shaba di ani pigi shedemba ni lam tabshi ni dan drebuku ni da nganzu jegyo marda inaya kanji di ani gonko cher draj mado gonko meba jik zao in chagmado asra.
And of course, great changes have occurred in our world through the passage of time. Great changes in the way that we think, in the views that we have as human beings. And still, when you look at the presentation of the teachings of the Buddha, the basis, the two truths, the path of method and wisdom, and the two resultant bodies of Buddha. And of course, with the two resultant bodies of Buddha, it might take us some time to understand what they are. Still, when you look at the basis, the paths, and the result, you see that rather than becoming obsolete for us, they become more and more relevant.
Tenza da dindigi da kusung tuku yonden si lamna chogoras kusung tuku yonden ditsu samchini ani sangila ya kyabsun drawayna kyabchobayna da kyabsun drawdan ani zawani noryo maris kyabsun drawdan yakshu di chagoras da di jisun jugchini ani sangi kanzi labsha karityan shaba di ani sosu nyen sam gomsum chechini nyamsu lembayna ani ranglaya pemba shenlaya pemba and samalola pendo chetu di toni yunguyoras ra.
So we understand those qualities of body, speech, and mind, and through that we go for refuge. And going for refuge to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha thus become unmistaken, not mistaken at all. So whatever teaching then we get from the Buddha, we study those teachings, we reflect upon them, and we also meditate on them. And through that, we find that it benefits ourselves and also it benefits others.
Then the sumba tugi yonde, can be yonde said. The sumba ni can be yonde, zevi yonde. Tambu shija chidawa the chinyaba tamji, lante the curura shabat der, kemba toba manga jubi, shija tadala, tumbi can be kavgi. Daily shamba namni, shija gachela, shiba gachon, makeba yenos. Dang how dole, kem bashigi, yishigi, shija tada, kab laki, curly shamba tamjigi, shija kona labala sheda. Jomdin, dugun dobi chu, namgun jone tamjene, changder gurradar, ur, kyogi, tugi, joyu kur, chönum yodam muyoji, jigdan hazo sozola, kala londa gyowaji, kyogi tuda to munga, she sombatar sambachawas.
So let's continue with the excellent qualities of the Buddha's mind, consisting of two sections, the excellent qualities of his exalted knowledge and the excellent qualities of his loving kindness, beginning with the excellent qualities of knowledge. It says, since all objects of knowledge, modes and varieties are engaged by the sage's unobstructed exalted knower, like myrobalan fruit placed in the palm of his hand, the sage's exalted knower comprehends all objects of knowledge. However, others' limited knowledge cannot comprehend the vast objects to be known. In this regard, it says in the praise of the one worthy of praise, only your excellent wisdom encompasses all objects of knowledge. For all others apart from you, some objects of knowledge remain to be known. And blessed one, dhammas of all times, all aspects, all places of origin, are spheres of activity of your mind. Like myrobalan fruit in your palm. As regards dhammas, static or mobile, single or various and distinct, there's nothing your mind is obstructed from, like wind moving to and fro in space. You should reflect in accordance with these statements.
Tirda sangi kembigi shisha tamjela kabsadi ro sangi mankembigi shisha chik ta yomarwas ta meba di tanjishuba nanje lo niton tugi konla ya sonjabe che tamji pigi 딱든 자위츠는 니규메바 비 떡베 파따와점 민기 딱점 토니 레송데기 텐지기 남샤 송데와디 다 드럽 디낭로라야 로 먼저 직된 감기다 직 메피기게 지당기 미기다 직 남주 풀도 좀 쯔딩이기 아니 체리버 소 임바이나야 다 치기 숙진기 쳐 아니 직 두텐춘 뒤니기 아니 차자와지 마도 코랑은 파제니 아니 니기 매바직 딱 군주 시고라서 이내야 산지 소원 난식다 직 아니 직 또베 파딱점 임박 토니 아니 최근 남샤디 신도 참모디 딱 갈리 군주 땡땡 원지 체투글 상군도스로
This quality of knowledge of the Buddha, saying that there's nothing that remains to be known by a mind of a Buddha. Buddha's mind knows all phenomena without exception, is something that we need to think about. A Buddha's mind not only knows that if something is sought for, it cannot be found, but also that everything is imputed by language and conceptions, that whatever exists is merely imputed by names and such. So this knowledge that the Buddha reached 2,600 years ago and then taught it to us is still very relevant at this day and age. And even when Geshe reckons those great scientists, those greater minds, think of the way that things exist and explain things on a physical level, materialistic level, whether things can be found or things that cannot be found. Geshe reckons that even in contemporary science, we come down on the conclusion that when you look for a particular phenomenon, it cannot be found upon looking for it. So a similar conclusion will be reached, but then in terms of holding then that whatever exists by merely imputed by names, by language and conception, is something that still in general needs to be investigated, and yet the Buddha has taught that 2,600 years ago.
들딘자 산지점된 디게다 지 용수 시제 용수 조바디 비기게 수수 라빈 틸야 비기다 지 아니 메도소르 샤샤와 난신기 아니 넬루디 켄체니 아니 타마델야라 간줄야 돔갸브니 아니 손샤와디 시덴바니 람탑시니 제부쿠니 세디 디차가도 왔어 딘자 딘디게 베기게 다지 아니 고송 투송기 연된 프로트 총댕인기 아니 개부 딘디질이야 아니 간주기 캡주 투야디 로 다디 가와산슈디로 간주 메제나니 가와산슈디 디차고레스 로
It is said that there's nothing that the Buddha's mind does not know, and the knowledge is such that is if all those phenomena are placed at the palm of the Buddha's hand, like, for example, placing a beautiful flower bloom in one's palm and being able to see that directly. So phenomena are known in such a way by Buddha's mind. But in a more particular way, those which are known by a mind of a Buddha are the basis, the two truths, the two sets of paths on method and wisdom, and the two bodies of Buddha. So then when you think of such marvelous qualities of body, speech, and mind of Buddha, then you think that how fortunate I am to have such object of refuge.
데다 제위연된디 다드는 세우쇼 제위연된 로 심젠남 뉴문베 라완 메바 징셴도 톰바야 닌지셴베 라완 메바 징베 드와노 둥가로 시바나 투지셴보 균제메바 게디 양갑주발레 드완 데다 탐제니 케메 뉴무 남지징 쿄는 드위 뉴무다 졸레 유리 투지담 담보 쿄라 차기용 왠디 강긴 코코 쿄 균진 유리 대다고 슝제 투지체라 기세다 뎀바담비 레벨이야 뎀무 몸바 만나기 따도 샘네 드원 기위 깨고던 코유저라 추바 남 시그나 장송 담바 된 투지기 시송바다 뎀바차오스.
So in speaking about the qualities of the Buddha's mind, we spoke of the quality of knowledge. The next is the quality of his loving kindness or loving care. And it says, just as sentient beings are bound by the afflictions without any control, The sage is bound by great compassion without control, and therefore great compassion continuously arises in him when he perceives suffering sentient beings. In the 150 verses, it says, every one of these sentient beings is equally bound by the afflictions. In order to unite their afflictions, you have long been bound by compassion. Should I first prostrate to you, or to that which causes you to stay in samsara that long, aware of its faults, to great compassion? And in the chapter of the truthful one, it also says, when he sees all beings whose minds are always obscured by ignorance, mental darkness, gloom, imprisoned in the prison of cyclic existence, great compassion is born in the holy sage. You should remember his loving kindness in accordance with his statements.
데르다 간지 아니 툭 제원인지 첨부디 러 심전 탐젤이야 러 비다지 아니 리르다 아니 지 옴폰단 딘디게 지 케바 메바 아니 뭐다 톤르고 딘디 케바 메바 간지 심진 요도 졸이야 아니 지고 지냐 비게 지 마이 풀지 제원한시 깡통인디 아니 좀 된디 코나렌도 왔으러
This quality of mind of great loving concern for others without making any distinction between others. Looking at impoverished sentient beings, those sentient beings who find themselves in pitiable situation, the Buddha's mind observes them with a great loving concern without making any distinction, without distinguishing between men or human beings and other living beings, which means that the Buddha's mind considers all of them with that great sense of affectionate love, like a mother or child.
다 좀든 디기 심전 탐젤이야 딘디기 아니 nganzu 아니 가서 다 뉴몬비 샤원도 교대와 나신기 산지 좀된 디 아니 심전 탐젤이야 미비 제원인지 챔비기 다 툭비 아니 샤원 교대바디 간다시 두고레도 라 더바 용적라 간다시 두고레스 라바이나 아니 심전 탐젤이야 닌지기 거당 거비기 균센 송샤기 저라스 델레데니 아니 산지 좀된 디 줄이야 투 줄이야 닌지 전부 여버디 아니 보고레스
Here it is said that the Buddha's mind is observing afflicted sentient beings, those who are afflicted by various afflictions. It observes them with great compassionate love. So how do we know that? How do we prove that the Buddha's mind observes all sentient beings without that degree of compassion? Well, we can know that, or we can infer that when we think of the causes that give rise to great compassion. When we understand the mechanism and the causes that give rise to great compassion, then we can also reach the conclusion that therefore the Buddha's mind beholds sentient beings with that sense of great compassionate love.
산지 좀된 디 송, 다 산지 좀된 디다 냐치 그 송샤게란다 심전 탐지 로 소자 요도 좀 로르주드 대반대버도 동함문대버 지규리 송바디 안 산지 송로다 로 지규리 임바인자 랑기 동함문대버 난시 제 동함문대버디 지그바리스 진짜 아니 랑 동알리 트라발이야 아니 비기 난신기 제 동알리 트런드기 삼바도 고리 송에티 디 툴이 여바인자 아니 디송 투고라서라 딘디지 투가 자원이는 콜면나 아니 시행기 가진 송 투고요 말이 산점된 디기 가진 송 투고 딘디기 사운다웨나 딘디기 자원인지 전부디 투를 총치니 아니 간줄에 람된 아샤기지 세우차가도 와서라.
In thinking of the causes for giving rise to such great compassion and love extended to afflicted sentient beings, we regard that all sentient beings we recognize that all sentient beings are the same in wishing for happiness and wanting to avoid suffering. All of them have exactly the same basic wish to be happy and to be free from suffering. So we think about it in relation to ourselves, in relation to our own personal experience of this wish or desire to be well, to be happy and to be free from suffering. And then we turn our attention to others and we think that just like me, they also have that basic wish to be happy and to be well. and therefore I should protect others as I do myself. So when you think of this process of thinking, where you recognize the equality of all sentient beings in terms of wishing for happiness and well-being and wanting to avoid suffering, then you see that as a valid basis for the development of great compassionate love that is equally extended to all.
디 상기기 최근한 거다 아니 님보디 아니 저번인지 전부 디 차고레스 라 디기다 투기용수 추대바지 라 상기기 최근한 거 다지 개체슈디 비기겠다 저번인지 전부 디 임바디 아니 반덴다와타비 오만주비 골라야 아니 송요레스 추준제온디로 담봉아시 달라시 다긴디시 걸 준주천데로 롤라닌지교가 텔란두스 라 토만인지라야 추바지고 준젠디 통다 발성라야 기체와의 균생기 네 토만인지 쳔벌라야 추바저바인 반덴다와타베다 고 송요라스라
So when we think of the essence of the teachings of the Buddha, the essence of the teachings of the Buddha is great compassionate love. And it is emphasized, the importance of great compassionate love is emphasized in Chandrakirti's supplement to the Milway. At the second verse in chapter number 1, Chandrakirti pays homage to great compassion. It says, it begins with the second verse. It says, mercy alone or love alone is seen as the seed of the conqueror's richest harvest, is water for development and is ripening in a state of long enjoyment. Therefore, at the start, I praise compassion. Sorry, I should have showed you that.
terda shebadi chiligi 고송 투기 텔릴 흥기 줘봤다 규민체바 니기 심전 탐제라 편도건 제보 대한 두슈문이 제로난 tum비 도제테 푼소담 마트버 고벌 마트마 메베 게버 여바 탐제 네번 제보 송소스.
Now, the final set of good qualities that we will cover in relation to the qualities of the Buddha are the excellent qualities of the Buddha's exalted activities, enlightened activities, and they read by means of both the spontaneous and the uninterrupted exalted activities of his body, speech, and mind. He benefits all sentient beings. In fact, insofar as a disciple is fit for guidance, it is impossible for the sage not to give that trainee what is excellent and pull him out of his degeneration. That is why it is stated that through his actions, he certainly performs everything necessary.
대저 산지 좀 된데 다 간지 안줄이야 지네 찬상 땡요레스로 아니 산지 틀레 이게 죽다 만주세디 아니 소소라야 라리고레스 산지 최탐지 캔서비 jelaya 아니 닌 켈 탈비 람dengi 타와란라 라리시바키 송데디 어디차고라스로 아니 산지기 안줄이야 랍샤께 랍샤디 안주이 니 냠바 난신 그 삼로탄 이야니 양드피 컴피티션 드바이나 아니 안줄이야 야기도요레스 데 메바이나 산지라야 투단 뉴버 존트 칸지 요바이나야 아니 안주 셈라 슈그체니 아니 셈 참마소야직 문도아스로
Such are the enlightened activities of the Buddha. But then to be able to engage those enlightened activities and to receive them is up to us. It depends upon us. Just like the Buddha said in one of his teachings, I've taught you the path that leads to liberation. Now liberation depends upon you. Which means that if we want to engage those enlightened activities of the Buddha, what we need to do is to open the mind to them, to listen to the teachings of the Buddha, to think of those teachings again and again, to think about them repeatedly so that we become familiar with those teachings thoroughly, and through that our mind transforms. Through that we get the benefits of the Buddha's teachings. So the Buddha might have great abilities. Even you could say that the Buddha has miraculous powers, and yet without ourselves listening to those teachings of the Buddha, thinking about them and allowing them to affect the mind, the Buddha would not be able to clean a mind stream for us.
Dinza da kanji nganzogi teri sanji kusum tusumgi and yonden des chik joya kokup chongya di da mezenan kawa sanshu chik Geshe gyatamba kawa sanshu chik chegorasra namgyu nganzo mezenan rodan rodi chik ani chuzu nyushi sabji nalola ya chik karichena mangchya di chakdang monsum peyak soro chik ro ani dindichi madobigi 제토금에 왔으라 인생한테 추주직 아니 규주단진의 산지 꾸순 투순 그 연댕 돌아야 아니 직로 딤니 피길이야 상무단에 총디 아니 간지 상마기 발그 또 디게자디 간주길이야 안 데고레스로 디기 간줄이야 펜도치고레스.
So today we have spent some time going over the qualities of body, speech, and mind of Buddha. And when we think of the time that we've spent together in our and such in studying this material, then the time, the other times or the other things that we do in our life, spending so much time, we often spend on time in just our mind being all over the place, being distracted by anger, attachment, and so forth, and other afflictive states of mind. And the time that we allocate actually for listening to such advice of the Buddha and allow it to affect our mind to develop positive state of mind is actually quite scarce. But we're still fortunate to be able to do that, at least to spend that much time on doing so. So we can also think that just as I've done today, in the future, I will do just like that, even more.
Thank you so much.
So we will conclude the session with the final Lamrim prayer. For my two collections, vast space that I've amassed from working with effort at this practice for a great length of time, may I become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose minds, wisdom, eyes blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach this state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all lives, Manjushri. May I find the best of complete graded paths of the teachings, and may I please all the Buddhas by my practice. Using skillful means, drawn by the strong force of compassion, may I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings with the point of the path as I've discerned. May I hold Buddhist teachings for a very long time. With my heart going out with great compassion in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread, or once spread have declined. May I reveal this treasure of happiness and aid. May the minds of those whose wish for liberation be granted bounteous peace. And may the Buddhist deeds be nourished for a long time by even this graded path of enlightenment completed due to the wondrous, victorious, virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their sons. May all humans and non-human beings who eliminate adversity and create conducive conditions for practicing the excellent paths never departed in any of their lives from the purest path praised by the Buddhas. Whenever someone makes effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtuous practices, may always be assisted by the mighty ones, and may oceans of prosperity spread everywhere. Well, Nigel, I refrain from asking that. I'll talk to you later. All right, let's leave it here for now. Thank you. So Nigel, I think that I've decided not to turn 50. That's my decision on turning 50. I'm not turning 50 tomorrow.
This is your yogi power, is it? Rather than Tumo, you're actually deciding to turn back time.
Is it your birthday?
No, it's